Have you ever been discontent ever in your life? Of course you've been discontent. I've been discontent. Maybe you're discontent right now with your career or where you live currently or relationships or how you feel in your body. I mean, we there's plenty of opportunity to be discontent in so many different areas of our life. And if I'm not careful, I can easily find myself being discontent and complaining about every little thing that could go wrong. But when we are discontent, it's usually because we're focused on the negative. And as long as we're focused on the negative, we're never going to be able to see past the circumstances. I think God is talking to us all the time and giving us direction for our future. And maybe the thing that you're really wanting to experience in your life, he's screaming at you right now, but you're so focused on what's not going well that we're deaf to it or blind to it. So I encourage you to learn to find contentment, because I'm living proof that as I began to brainwash myself of complaining and shift it to finding the silver lining, even when it's little, things really started to change for me. When I was in Bible college, I knew that we weren't going to stay in Colorado the rest of our lives. There was just something about it. I know that people who have never been to Colorado or who love Colorado they're so confused at why we were just unhappy there, but I'm not going to get into it because that would bring discontentment. But there was a lot to complain about. It's beautiful. People travel all over the world to visit Colorado. I get it. We knew that wasn't the place for us. And so we were youth pastors at this church in Pueblo, Colorado. And I found myself complaining all the time. I'd complain about the wind and the dust and the dryness and the people and the weather and all sorts of different things. I would just complain all the time. And it got to where I just hated it. This beautiful place. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily Pueblo is the most beautiful place in Colorado, but it's driving distance to some of the most beautiful places on the planet. And I was miserable. And then I started to pick apart every little thing at our church. And so I was super involved at this church in many different areas, and I was just unhappy. And so I had a few months left of Bible college, and graduation was coming up, and I knew that something needed to change. So everywhere we'd go visit family or just go on a little trip somewhere, we'd be praying everywhere that we go. Lord, is this the place that we're supposed to be? And all over the country. And we just were not getting any clarity. And so I came back, and I was talking to God and just, what is it? Why are we hitting wall after wall? And I felt like the Lord spoke to me and said, you need to learn to be content where you are. Okay, there's nothing to be content about. This place sucks. I don't want to live here anymore, but I'm going to learn to be content. So I started just finding things to be thankful for, having gratitude for the people. I mean, the church, was it perfect? No. Was the city perfect? No. Was the weather perfect? No. But I shifted my focus from all the things I didn't like to the things that I did, and that the people at the church that we were heavily involved in, their hearts were in the right place. And I started to be thankful for what they did for us in our life and helped us grow. And I started to look at the city and try to look past all the things I didn't like and start to find those little silver linings behind everything. And after about a month of doing this, I mean, I was dug deep down into this pit. And it took me about 4 weeks of just being thankful for people and the city and all the things I already said. So about that time, we went on a trip down to Houston. And the second we got down here, Laura, my wife, and I looked at each other, and we just knew that this is the place we wanted to be. I don't know if it was a big God moment or any of that, but both of us, the second we got here, we knew this is where we were supposed to be. And so we started to get clarity on the future. How it was going to happen, I didn't know, but I knew that this was going to be the next stop. Just this inward knowing. And I believe, I mean, I can't prove this, but I think God was talking to us that whole time. We just couldn't hear it because we were too busy complaining. And once we tore those walls of negativity down, we started to get clarity on the future. And then I went to school the next day, and a guy came in and he said that an opportunities come up. We need a director of one of our extension schools. And he just kept talking about it. He didn't say the location or any of that. And I leaned over to my friend and I said, if he says Houston, that's my job. And right then he said, Houston, we have a problem. We need a director at the extension school down in Houston. And I just elbowed my friend and I said, that's it. That's my job. And I went through the whole hiring process and I got the job, and that's what got us down here. And then a lot of things have happened. I've changed a lot. I've grown a lot, but it all started with this word I feel like I got from God saying, you need to learn to be content right where you are. It's really that simple. I mean, if you want to break it down, some people say this is too much psychology or whatever, but think happy thoughts. It's not, I mean, it's difficult in execution at times, but it's not the most mind-blowing revelation out there, but we don't realize how much we complain. Even living here, I find myself complaining about the traffic. There's over 7 million people that live in the greater Houston area, and there's a lot to complain about. And I catch myself and I replace those negative thoughts. My rule is for every negative thought, I have to follow it up with 2 positives to cancel out the negative, and things, you just start to get clarity on things. So if you're wondering how to get out of the mess that you're in, learn to be content in any situation that you're in. In Philippians 4, it says, for I have learned how to be content, satisfied to the point where I'm not disturbed or disquieted in whatever state I'm in. I know how to be abased and live humbly in straitened circumstances, and I know also how to enjoy plenty and live in abundance. I have learned in any and all circumstances the secret of facing every situation, whether well-fed or going hungry, having a sufficiency and enough to spare, or going without and being in want. So in any situation that we're in, there's always a silver lining. I worked in a prayer line once. This is my last day, and I was kind of done. I was not a good prayer minister. If you ever called this certain prayer line and got me on the phone, I apologize to you right now because I was not good. But I was especially not good on the last day because I was done. It's the last call I ever got. And I had this lady calling and just complaining about everything. And I said, I said, you need to learn to be content. Well, there's nothing to be thankful for. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. Yes, there is. No, there isn't. I'm telling you, there is. And she hung up on me. And so I didn't handle it the right way. But the truth in what I said is there. I still believe what I said. I just could have handled it a little bit differently. But, you know, when Paul wrote that letter and he talks about being content in any situation, do you know where he was? He was in prison. And I would never want to go to one of our prisons, but there's air conditioned and there's things to do. I told the kids the other day, I don't know why I tell my kids these things, but my biggest fear in life is to be wrongfully convicted of a crime and going to prison the rest of my life. But that has nothing to do with anything. The point is he was in a prison that was much worse than our already pretty bad prisons. And he's telling people, writing this letter to people who are not in prison, to learn to be content in your situations, to in any circumstance, be thankful, be content. It's not as bad as you think. And even if it's really bad, there's a silver lining, and you can start being thankful for something small. And it might just be, I have another day on this planet. I have a roof over my head. I have electricity. I have a cell phone to talk to my friends and family. I have opportunity. And you just start building on that. And as you start to build, it'll get easier to find more things to be thankful for. Being content and having gratitude in any situation is the secret of life. We're being hindered because of our bad attitudes, because we're just lost and focused on the wrong things. The bad things won't change necessarily, but your perspective of that bad thing will start to change. We're going to have mountains in our life, but whenever we're looking down at a mountain, it doesn't seem that bad. We can just step over it. When before we're making a mountain out of a molehill, and maybe it's really not as bad as you think. My son got sick about, I don't know, 6 years ago. He got pneumonia and sepsis, and it was just a bad deal. And there was about 3 days there we were in the hospital, and we didn't know if he was going to make it. And man, you can attack me, but whenever something happens to my kids, it's a different level. And I got in this really, really dark, low spot. And I was a pastor of a church at that time, and it was Easter Sunday, and I wasn't going to be there. And it's like, that's the big day for most churches. It wasn't always a big day for our church, but I had to get someone else to speak. So I hadn't told anybody what we were going through, but I had to because we weren't going to be at church on Easter Sunday. So I put a post out there, and people started praying for my son and coming to see him. They had no idea, but they didn't just pray for him. They prayed for me, and they prayed for my wife. And it started to shift my heart, just having a support system and people to help me find something to be thankful for in that incredibly dark time. And you could say it's a coincidence. I don't think it was a coincidence, but that day his health took a turn and he started getting better, and we made it through there. And he was in the hospital about 4 or 5 more days, but we have a son. And I really believe that if I had shut out any positive encouragement, prayer, any of that, I don't know if we would have had the same outcome. I can't prove any of that, but that's my experience. And I'd rather be content and thankful and happy than miserable and discontent and wondering what the next step is going to be. So I encourage you, find something to be thankful for. Write it down. Write 5 things down right now. What are you thankful for in life? It could be big, it could be small. Not just what you're thankful for, but why you're thankful for it. And get emotionally involved in it. And I promise you, things will start to change.